There are two characters that stand at the very peak of Arrancar evolution. In this video, I'll be diving into one of the most fascinating matchups in all of Bleach. This is Ulquiorra Cifer versus Coyote Starrk. Kubo does a fantastic job of designing both of these characters as perfect opposites. Ulquiorra, the 4th ranking Espada, views reality through the lens of what his eyes can perceive. This represents his cold, nihilistic nature. Meanwhile, Starrk, the 1st ranking Espada, whose presence alone is enough to kill other hollows, he embodies the tragic weight of loneliness. Both of these Espada had achieved their Arrancar forms through emotional voids, yet their responses to that emptiness couldn't be more contrasting. The Bleach community as a whole has been very split on this matchup for years. Well, this is because Starrk is the 1st ranking Espada, so you'd assume that he is the strongest, but until you find out that Ulquiorra is the only Arrancar amongst the Espada to have achieved the Segunda Etapa, and apparently Aizen hadn't even seen this form. In order to determine who would win in a one-on-one matchup, I'll be examining everything from both of their Resurrection forms to their combat intelligence and even their specific feats from the series. Can Ulquiorra's Segunda Etapa overcome Starrk's overwhelming spiritual pressure? Does the Primera Espada's pack of explosive wolves stand a chance against Ulquiorra's reality-bending Lanza del Relampago? Be sure to stick around until the very end of the video in order to find out who I think wins in this matchup. So to make sure that this battle reaches its max potential, we need to establish some parameters which showcase both of the Espadas at their absolute peak. A suitable location for this battle is the iconic dome on top of Las Noches. This is a vast open space allowing for each of them to utilize their ultimate techniques without environmental restrictions. I'll be analyzing both Ulquiorra and Starrk in their ultimate forms from the Arrancar arc. Ulquiorra does of course have his Segunda Etapa transformation, meanwhile Starrk will be able to fight with Lilynet at his side as he can access their full fusion resurrection state, unleashing Los Lobos without limitation. So let's briefly go over Ulquiorra's character profile. He is designated as the 4th ranking Espada, and what makes him truly fascinating isn't just his raw power, but his role as Aizen's most trusted operative. While a lot of the other Espada are left to their own devices, Ulquiorra received exclusive missions and orders from Aizen, and he even has access to a transformation that as far as we know no other Arrancar can achieve. Ulquiorra was born as a hollow in absolute darkness. This had shaped his nihilistic worldview, which leads him to becoming this emotionally detached and analytically precise monster. Ulquiorra's encounter with Ichigo revealed a gap that was so vast that the substitute Shinigami was unable to comprehend the difference in their abilities. When he casually blocked Ichigo's Bankai enhanced Getsuga Tensho with his bare forearm, it wasn't just for showing off, it was a small glimpse of his insane physics-defying power. His analytical abilities proved equally impressive during his reconnaissance mission to Karakura Town. Facing both Urahara and Yoruichi at the same time, Ulquiorra maintained tactical superiority while protecting a wounded Yami. The Bleach databook states that he could have had the upper hand against both of them while they were busy protecting civilians. One of Ulquiorra's notable achievements is how he had completely dominated holified Bankai Ichigo. When Ichigo's persistent resolve had gotten on Ulquiorra's nerve, he had then activated his Segunda Etapa in a sadistic attempt to drown him with pure despair. Ulquiorra has quite a versatile moveset with his Resurrection Murcielago, which transforms him into a bat-like creature capable of flight, and his spiritual energy in this form becomes so dense that it rains down as green energy. This form also allows him access to Luz de la Luna. These are energy javelins which function both as melee weapons or projectiles. But what makes Ulquiorra truly special is in his ability to access his Segunda Etapa, a second release form which makes him unique amongst all of the Espada. This transformation pushes his spiritual pressure into realms which Uryu had described as barely recognizable as Reiatsu. This transformation creates an atmosphere of despair which affects everybody in proximity. In this state, his Lanza del Relampago becomes available, as these energy spears are so powerful and unstable that even Ulquiorra himself struggles to control their trajectory. His regenerative abilities set him apart from other high-ranking Arrancar who traded healing for raw power. Ulquiorra deliberately retained his high-speed regeneration, thus allowing him to restore entire limbs within seconds while maintaining his offensive capabilities. His Cerro Oscuras represents his mastery over traditional hollow techniques as he amplifies the standard Cerro attack attacks by tenfold while maintaining precision and speed. On the other hand, the Primera Espada Starrk carries the burden of being the strongest amongst Aizen's army. There is a great deal of isolation embedded into his character, with his aspect of death being solitude. This is the very core theme which shapes Starrk's entire existence, and it had ultimately driven him to the point where he had split his very soul in half. Unlike most of the Espada who were artificially enhanced by Aizen's Hokyoku, Starrk was already in possession of a natural Arrancar form. His spiritual pressure was so overwhelming that other hollows would simply cease to exist in his presence. And this was literally because of the sheer density of his Reiatsu. Because of his feelings of loneliness, he eventually divided his consciousness into two separate beings, thus creating his Fraction Lilynet as both a companion and a living weapon. When Aizen had discovered Starrk wandering among the mountains of corpses that marked Starrk's passage through Wikomundo, he wasn't just recruiting another soldier, he was offering salvation to a being whose power had become his curse. Starrk's combat feats prove why he is the #1 Espada. Think back to how he effortlessly extracted Orihime while simultaneously evading both Ichigo and Kenpachi. This still remains to be one of the most impressive speed feats in the series. He crossed the city-sized interior of Las Noches instantaneously while maintaining his characteristic apologetic demeanor. His confrontation with both Shunsui and Ukitake at the same time proved even more telling, as these weren't random Shinigami captains, but they were two of the most experienced and powerful members of the Gotei 13. Starrk not only held his own against their coordinated assault, but he had forced Shunsui to seriously consider unleashing his Bankai. The technical analysis of Ukitake's absorption-based Shikai after witnessing it merely 3 times showcases his battle intelligence, which operates through intuition rather than systematic study. While other Espada relied on brute force or specialized abilities, Starrk approached combat like a chess master, constantly analyzing patterns and exploiting weaknesses with effortless precision. Starrk's Los Lobos Resurrection is very unique. Rather than drawing power from a traditional Zanpakuto, his release involves fusing with Lilynet herself, transforming her into twin pistols that retain her consciousness and personality. This symbiotic relationship grants him access to Cero Metraleta, a technique capable of firing what he claims could be 1,000 Ceros at the same time, creating barrages that even captain-level opponents will struggle to counter. The wolves that he can summon are also fragments of his own soul which are manifested into reality. Each wolf is capable of independent thought and explosive detonation upon contact. These aren't just simple energy constructs, but actual pieces of Starrk's essence, explaining why they are so effective and the visible toll that they take on his spiritual reserves. Starrk has a mastery over conventional Cero techniques, as he is able to fire these energy blasts without assuming a combat stance, making his attacks unpredictable and nearly impossible to anticipate. The Bleach databook Unmasked confirms his ability to generate infinite Ceros, given that he has sufficient spiritual pressure. So now let's compare both of their abilities. Ulquiorra's abilities center around precision and concentrated destructive potential. His exclusive access to Cero Oscuras amplifies his destructive output by 10 times, a mathematical advantage that speaks to both his spiritual pressure reserves and his technical mastery. What makes this particularly dangerous is how casually he uses it, treating attacks that could obliterate city blocks as mere opening moves. Starrk, on the other hand, operates on an entirely different wavelength. His Cero Metraleta embodies quantity over quality, transforming spiritual energy into an overwhelming barrage which resembles modern warfare more than traditional hollow combat. Where most fighters will carefully time and aim their energy attacks, Starrk can blanket entire areas with destructive force, making evasion almost impossible. The versatility gap becomes apparent when examining their unique techniques. Ulquiorra's Luz de la Luna javelins showcase remarkable adaptability as they function equally well as melee weapons or projectiles. Then in his Segunda Etapa form, these evolve into Lanza del Relampago attacks, which are so powerful that their detonation dwarfs Las Noches itself. Starrk's Wolfpack generation highlights perhaps the most creative application of soul manipulation that we witness. By literally tearing fragments of his and Lilynet's shared soul, he creates autonomous spiritual entities which hunt independently while retaining explosive potential. When it comes to their abilities, energy efficiency becomes a crucial point to consider. Ulquiorra's techniques, while catastrophic, appear to be more taxing. With his Segunda Segunda Etapa transformation clearly taking a significant toll on his body. Starrk's infinite Zero capability, if taken literally, implies that he could maintain his assault indefinitely as long as he maintains his spiritual pressure reserves. Let's now move on to both of their physical strength. Starrk's physical strength operates beyond conventional limits, as his casual displays of power are genuinely terrifying. He deflected attacks from both Shunsui and Ukitake at the same time without any visible strain. When he extracted Orihime from under the noses of two captain level opponents, it required immense physical control to execute such a precise maneuver. We see Ulquiorra's strength manifest in multiple ways, like his signature move of impaling opponents through the chest, which requires precise force application to penetrate spiritual pressure defenses while maintaining perfect accuracy. When he caught Ichigo's Getsuga Tensho with his bare hands, barely acknowledging the attack that had previously overwhelmed other Espada, it demonstrated Ulquiorra's insane strength paired with his absolute confidence. Now, comparing both of their speeds perhaps reveals the most dramatic difference between the two fighters. Starrk operates with what can only be described as spatial displacement mastery. His Sonido transcends typical high-speed movement, appearing more like instantaneous relocation. The databooks specifically highlight his exceptional long-distance Sonido capabilities. Ulquiorra's speed, while potentially less spectacular in pure numbers, proves more combat-orientated and tactically superior. His reaction times border on the supernatural as he intercepts and analyzes Ichigo's mask-enhanced attacks with such ease that he could throw multiple Luz de la Luna javelins in the time that it took Ichigo's neurons to process a single assault. His movements during Segunda Etapa reached levels where even the enhanced Ichigo struggled to track his positioning. Starrk's combat technique revolves around his unique dual-wielding firearms approach. His marksmanship transcends normal understanding as he's firing Zeros from multiple angles at the same time while maintaining perfect accuracy against captain-level opponents like Ukitake and Shunsui. The technical skill required to coordinate dual-gun combat while managing the spiritual pressure output of each weapon separately is truly impressive. Ulquiorra's technique is an art form as he embodies both speed without wasting any movement. His swordsmanship achieves maximum efficiency with minimal movement, as every strike carries deliberate intent, whether if he's testing an opponent's defenses or delivering a finishing blow. He's able to seamlessly integrate physical strikes with his energy projectiles, as it creates attack patterns which flow like mechanical precision, making it very difficult to evade him. In terms of intelligence and strategy, Ulquiorra represents the peak of calculated warfare. During his reconnaissance mission to Karakura town, he instantly deduced that Orihime's Sonten Kishun wasn't healing, as it had powers of temporal manipulation, something that he'd never encountered before. This rapid assessment speaks to a mind that processes information with computer-like efficiency. His tactical thinking shines the brightest in psychological warfare manipulation. The way that he systematically broke down Ichigo's resolve by revealing his rank as merely the 4th Espada wasn't just cruel, it was strategic demoralization designed to crush his opponent's fighting spirit before physical combat had even properly started. Ulquiorra understood that defeating an enemy's mind often proves more effective than destroying their body. Starrk approaches strategy via a totally different angle. This is one that is rooted in natural combat instinct rather than methodical analysis. His battles against Shunsui and Ukitake highlighted remarkable adaptability, especially when he quickly deciphered Ukitake's absorption ability after only witnessing it 3 times. While Ulquiorra requires systematic observation, Starrk operates on battlefield intuition, which allows him to grasp complicated abilities almost instantly. It's evident from Starrk's backstory that he had to develop survival strategies based on isolation and self-reliance. This created a tactical mind which prioritizes efficiency over elaborate planning. Why devise complicated strategies when overwhelming power can achieve the same result? In terms of their stamina and durability, Ulquiorra possesses what might be the most strategically valuable defensive ability amongst all Arrancar. This is his high-speed regeneration. Unlike the other Espada who traded this ability for raw power, Ulquiorra deliberately retained it, as he has a tactical advantage which extends beyond simple healing. He's able to regenerate entire limbs, including complicated structures like his wings, within seconds of losing them. However, his regeneration does have some limitations. His brain and internal organs are unable to be restored, making precision strikes to these areas potentially fatal. When Vaster Lord Ichigo had fired a point-blank Zero arrow which destroyed Ulquiorra's torso, he acknowledged that while his external body could heal, the damage to his vital organs was irreversible. When it comes to his stamina reserves, they appear virtually limitless during standard combat. Throughout his extended fight with Ichigo, this included multiple release states and continuous energy expenditure. Ulquiorra showed very little signs of fatigue through all of the Cerro Oscuras and Lanza del Relámpago that he had fired. When it comes to Stark's durability, his Reiatsu is so dense that it naturally creates a protective field around him. When Love's Shikai struck him directly, sending him crashing through buildings, Starrk emerged with only minor scratches and a half-hearted complaint about the impact. What makes Stark's endurance noteworthy is his ability to maintain peak performance while fighting multiple opponents at the same time. He fought Shunsui and Ukitake and then later Rose and Love, and throughout this he never showed significant degradation in his capabilities. The fact that he could continuously fire Cerro Metroletta without apparent energy drain speaks to stamina levels that approach a theoretical level of infinite. We're now moving on to their ultimate abilities, and we have to mention the Segunda Etapa. This transformation doesn't just amplify Ulquiorra's existing abilities, it completely reimagines his entire combat methodology. The best ability of this form is Lanza del Relámpago, whose detonation creates explosions that tower above the fortress-sized Los Noches, generating destruction visible from incredible distances. What makes this technique lethal isn't just its raw destructive capability, but its unpredictable nature, as even Ulquiorra admits the trajectory becomes difficult to control. The ultimate abilities of Stark's moveset involve his Wolfpack generation, as this transforms the battlefield into a nightmare scenario where hundreds of spiritual constructs hunt independently. Each wolf exhibits intelligence as it can navigate through obstacles, extend their forms for precise strikes, and most critically, each detonation carries the force of an Espada level attack. The technique forces opponents into an impossible tactical situation. How on earth do you defend against hundreds of guided missiles? Now, the limitations of these ultimate techniques reveal some crucial vulnerabilities. Lanza del Relámpago demands significant spiritual energy investment, and Ulquiorra's admitted difficulty with controlling its trajectory may mean that he may struggle to hit his mark every time. More importantly, despite having Segunda Etapa, Ulquiorra's regenerative abilities will not allow him to heal vital organs after they've sustained critical damage. Starrk, on the other hand, faces a different dilemma. Generating his Wolfpack requires sacrificing his dual pistol form, temporarily removing his rapid-fire Cerro capabilities. This technique also demands constant spiritual energy output to maintain multiple constructs at the same time. Starrk did state that each of these wolves represent a literal piece of his soul being expended, and we don't know if the destruction of each wolf would lead to an actual fragment of Stark's soul being destroyed. This is yet to be confirmed. So let's consider a direct confrontation between both of their ultimate attacks. Ulquiorra's Lanza del Relámpago represents concentrated annihilation. These are singular strikes of overwhelming power which are designed to eliminate threats through raw force. Stark's wolves embody distributed destruction, multiple coordinated attacks which overwhelm through numbers and persistence. The interaction presents some fascinating possibilities. Would Ulquiorra's javelin technique clear multiple wolves at the same time? When you consider Lanza del Relámpago's area of effect destruction, it would suggest yes, but with the wolves having the ability to reform, it may be enough to neutralize Ulquiorra's attack. Conversely, could the Wolfpack overwhelm Ulquiorra's defenses through sheer volume? His enhanced speed and flight capabilities in Segunda Etapa may allow Ulquiorra to evade the wolves, but maintaining such mobility while preparing Lanza del Relámpago may create some timing issues and his inability to properly aim the attack at Starrk. So both of these characters do have some wildcards beyond just their raw power and technical abilities. Ulquiorra's nihilistic worldview presents an interesting double-edged sword in combat. He has an insane level of focus and emotional detachment during battle. It allows him to remain completely unshaken by psychological warfare, intimidation tactics, or dramatic power displays which would rattle other opponents. However, this same nihilism becomes his Achilles heel when he is confronted with concepts that he cannot comprehend, like the heart which drives human determination. Stark's profound loneliness, while appearing as a weakness, actually grants him unique combat advantages which most opponents would never anticipate. His desperate desire for companionship makes him incredibly protective of Lily Ned, but it also means he's constantly holding back his true power to avoid accidentally killing potential allies or even enemies who might become friends. This self-imposed limitation could work in his favor if he ever faced a situation where unleashing his full strength wouldn't risk harming someone that he cares about. Ulquiorra fights with surgical precision, viewing each battle as a methodical dismantling of his opponent's capabilities. He doesn't seek to prove anything or derive satisfaction from victory, he simply executes his orders with cold efficiency. Starrk conversely embodies reluctant warfare, as his preference for avoiding conflict entirely means that when forced to fight seriously, he brings a level of unpredictability which stems from his core discomfort with violence. His reluctance isn't weakness, it's strategic patience. He observes, waits for openings, and strikes when necessary rather than engaging in prolonged exchanges. Something that is really overlooked is how Ulquiorra's high-speed regeneration could create psychological pressure rather than just physical advantage. His ability to recover from seemingly fatal injuries while maintaining his emotionless demeanor could gradually erode opponents' confidence. However, against someone like Starrk, who genuinely doesn't want to cause unnecessary suffering, this regeneration might actually work against Ulquiorra by making Starrk more likely to seek a non-lethal resolution rather than escalating to truly annihilating attacks. So after examining every aspect of these two legendary Espada, and it makes sense why everyone believes one of these opponents to be better than the other. So in terms of physical dominance, Starrk's overwhelming advantage in this realm stems from his natural Arrancar evolution and the sheer scope of his capabilities. His effortless performance against multiple captain-level opponents showcases endurance reserves that even Ulquiorra's regeneration is unable to match. The Primera Espada's ability to maintain peak performance while analyzing, adapting, and executing complicated strategies proves that his physical attributes trump over Ulquiorra's. So in terms of physical strength, Starrk definitely has it. When it comes to tactics within combat, this category was pretty close, but it highlights the contrasting approaches that both of the fighters have to combat intelligence. Ulquiorra's analytical precision allows him to dismantle opponents through calculated psychological warfare. However, Starrk's intuitive battlefield awareness proved superior in a lot of dynamic situations. His instant comprehension of complicated abilities after minimal exposure, combined with his ability to mislead opponents while at the same time testing their capabilities, highlights adaptability that rigid analytical minds like Ulquiorra would struggle to achieve. So yeah, in terms of pure tactics, Starrk is the winner. When it comes to the versatility of each of their movesets, without a doubt, Segunda Etapa is the most powerful transformation amongst all of the Espada, with his Lanza del Relampago delivering unparalleled destructive concentration, but then on the other hand, Starrk's moveset grants him a bit more flexibility, which is very beneficial in long fights. His infinite Cerro capability combined with the strategic versatility of his Wolfpack technique creates battlefield control, which forces opponents into impossible positions. Where Ulquiorra excels at overwhelming single targets, Starrk is able to dominate an entire battlefield. So yes, once again, Starrk is the winner in this category. In terms of defense, Ulquiorra would have definitely won this if his high-speed regeneration didn't have limitations. Because he is unable to heal vital organs, it does create some exploitable vulnerabilities. Like I mentioned earlier in the video, Starrk has an insane level of defense as he has a natural barrier made up of spiritual pressure. This allows him to maintain his defenses while executing complicated offensive strategies, providing sustainable protection which doesn't depend on energy-intensive healing processes. So in this category, once again, Starrk wins. In terms of psychological warfare, Ulquiorra's nihilistic worldview creates unshakable focus for him, but it also represents his greatest weakness when he is confronted with something that he cannot understand, like the concept of the heart. Starrk's profound loneliness, while seemingly disadvantageous, actually grants him exceptional emotional intelligence and combat patience. His reluctance to engage violently translates into strategic unpredictability, which could exploit Ulquiorra's methodical expectations. So again, psychological warfare, Starrk has the upper hand. The final category, when we analyze both of their ultimate power, Starrk's spiritual pressure and his tactical versatility would secure him victory over Ulquiorra through sustained pressure and battlefield control. His ability to deploy infinite Cerro barrages while maintaining his wolfpack coordination creates multi-layered offense that even Segunda Etapa enhanced capabilities will struggle to counter. Under specific conditions where Ulquiorra could isolate the engagement and land a decisive Lanza del Relampago, the outcome may be very different, but Starrk's superior mobility and his incredible range movement makes such scenarios very unlikely. So yeah, my assessment is that Starrk would definitely beat Ulquiorra in a one-on-one fight. It appears as though the community poll that I ran on my channel agrees with my assessment. We had over 10,000 votes, with 60% of people thinking that Starrk would win in most scenarios and 40% of people thinking that Ulquiorra would win. I think because we got to see very little of Starrk within the manga, people underestimate how powerful he truly is, but there is a reason why he is the first ranking Espada. According to question 674 asked on Kubo's official fan club Club Outside, when he was asked about Starrk's full power as a Hollow, Kubo explained that Aizen was aware of Starrk even before he had become an Arrancar, but Aizen decided to wait to recruit him until after he had gained the Hokyoku and the situation had settled. Kubo even clearly mentions that Starrk's power is difficult to read even for somebody as powerful as Aizen. Now, if these words don't prove to you that we barely got to see anything of Starrk's power, then I don't know what else to say to you. But we have now reached the point of the video where I do want to hand over the discussion to all of you. Who do you think is the strongest between Ulquiorra and Starrk? Who is the true #1 ranking powerful Espada? Please do continue the discussion in the comments, and lastly, thank you for making it to the end of this one, and I cannot wait to see you in my next video.
A massive thank you goes out to all of my amazing Patreon supporters for helping to make this video possible. If you also want to support the channel and see your name in the end of my videos, then check out my Patreon, which has loads of perks like early video access and so much more. Thank you for sticking around till the end of the video, and whatever you contribute will mean a lot to me.